So you guys still on Thursday?
Yeah.
7?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have Fred make a motion to lay it on table.
Okay.
Which means it just
It's 7 o'clock exactly.
Okay. All right.
I would just start.
Good evening.
You're doing some, you're here, so
Just a couple of housekeeping items. We are being filmed for television, so I hope that you won't be throwing it. Just grab a hold of that as appropriate. Also, in the event that there are any articles from which I must step aside, I, without objection, would nominate the town clerk to take my position for the duration of those articles.
Yeah.
Seeing no objection, I assume that that's okay with everyone, and we shall proceed. If the clerk could please read the return of the warrant.
Franklin SS. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Whately by posting attested copies of the same at the town hall, town office building, post office, and S. White Dickinson Library in said town 7 days at least before the date of the meeting as within directed. Edwin M. Zanieski, Constable of Whately, and it was posted on April 12th, 2017.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the annual reports of the officers of the town and to hear any other reports of the boards and committees.
second.
Article 1 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions? Chairman Newland?
Yeah, I'd like to say that one of the nicer properties of, I guess, being on the select board is to being the chair, which we rotate every year. So it's my year this year, and the person who's the chair has to decide how to dedicate the annual report, and it's usually to a group or an individual or of the town. And it's always a very hard decision because there's so many wonderful people in town. It's the hardest decision, but it's also a very delightful decision to be able to acknowledge people who have contributed to the welfare of the town. And this year, it's been my pleasure and duty to dedicate the town report, and my pleasure to dedicate it to Judy Marklin and John Roboleski for their dogged, persistent, unabated, passionate pursuit of helping the town with our infrastructure, particularly with our town hall, of which you will hear more about tonight. But I want to acknowledge that John and Judy have been integral and pivotal to that, to get us to the point where we are tonight with regard to the town hall. And I just, it's been interesting because I've been on all these other committees with them for the last 12 years or so, and they have very different styles, as many of you may appreciate, knowing both of them as you probably do, at least from their appearances at town meeting. And I think it's great that people like John and Judy and, well, frankly, everybody who's here can work together and see beyond their self-interest to the interests of the whole town. And I hope and I'm confident that we'll continue on that road, certainly through tonight, but for the future to come. And I just wanted to thank John and Judy for being a part of that trajectory.
Jonathan? Your turn.
Did we vote? We didn't vote yet, did we?
You're right, we didn't. It was such a nice speech. I was lulled into a feeling of security.
So why is it my turn?
It isn't.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion pertinent to Article 1? Those in favor, please indicate by raising your signs. Those opposed? The article passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the town treasurer with the approval of the select board to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of the revenue of the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2017, in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 4, and to renew any note or notes as may be given for a period of less than 1 year in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 17.
Yeah, you're doing three.
Second. Any discussion, questions, issues with Article 2? Those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the town treasurer with the approval of the select board to enter into compensating balance agreements with banking institutions having their principal offices in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts during the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2017, as permitted by General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to apply for, accept, and expend any federal, state, or private grant monies on behalf of the town and to authorize the town treasurer with approval of the select board to borrow in anticipation of reimbursement.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town by inserting a new Part 1, Chapter 46, revolving funds to establish and authorize revolving funds for use by certain town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E, 1/2, as follows in italics. I think you all have this. I think we need to read the whole page unless.
Any questions or issues with the,
No.
I'd second this motion.
questions?
Brian, did you want to explain why we're doing this or not?
It's pretty simple. The state law changed in how towns vote their revolving funds. It essentially requires the town to adopt a bylaw which establishes the revolving funds, and the towns will vote annually on the spending limits for those funds. So that's the change for Article 5 and Article 6 is the spending limits for those funds. These are the same funds that were voted in fiscal year 2017.
Questions for the board or for Brian? Those in favor? Those opposed? Article 5 passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to establish spending limits for the town's revolving fund as established by Chapter 46, revolving funds of the general bylaws of the town, or otherwise for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2017. And there is a table underneath that article which lists out the different revolving funds and the spending limits of each fund.
Second.
Questions? Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Article is passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fix the salaries or compensation of the elected officials of the town for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2017, as follows. There's a table there listing the position and the amounts with a 2.5% COLA. Second. Okay.
Discussions? Everyone's had a chance to look at the table? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed.
Wayne? not on. It's not on.
No.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $161,425 or any other sum or sums of money from the Water Department Enterprise Fund to finance the operation of the Water Department for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2017 as follows.
Second?
I assume we're waiving reading of the detail. You're not going to read the detail, right? Good. Is there any discussion, questions? Those in favor? Those opposed? The measure passes. Paul Antaya will do a very brief overview of our budget planning.
Should Paul make the motion first and then do the?
No, I think it's okay to do the
Yeah, I think we,
do the
that's
speech
a
first, and
good
then we'll
point, though.
move on.
Good evening from the Finance Committee. We'd like to take a few moments and give you an overview of what this budget year looked like. Obviously, this is budget number 247, if you do the math on the screen, give or take. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone whose name is on this screen for spending a yeoman's year here getting through it. And another reason I put this up is because we started a new process this year where the Select Board and the Finance Committee met together so that we could understand the needs of each of our groups before coming to a decision on a given department's budget. So again, thank you to the Select Board, Brian, Mary Ellen, and the FinCom. Next one. If we look at our town government, we can see that these are the drivers here at the bottom in terms of the expenses that lead to the town government expenses. And fiscal year 18, comparatively, compared to the 2 years prior, no big shakes. Every department came in very close, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but nonetheless, as you can see, no big gains. Next. The schools, Franklin Tech, for the first time in a while, has had a little bump. The high school looks even. Whately Elementary is beginning to move up each and every year. And obviously, we offer good product here. We offer good education. And what speaks to that is how many children from outside the town come to Whately to pursue that education. So you can see this is the trend right now with each of these schools, and we are watching that very closely. Next. And you're probably kind of wondering, what are the tax rates? We put this up because we think about the tax rate a lot. We just don't look at the numbers and say, oh yeah, we can afford that, let's buy it. Let's do it. We think about the tax rate. And as you can see, right now, as an estimate, from 17 to 18, it looks like here in the town of Whately, we will be experiencing somewhere around a 15-cent increase in our taxes. Now, that's an estimate. We still have to see what comes out of Boston. In fact, from Boston, if we look at, and if we listen to the budget that's coming out of the House, our tax increase could be 9 cents. But we got to wait and see. So that's kind of what it looks like right now. If you look at the rate change over time in this town, from 2009, 2008 to 18, actually 2010 to 18, but these 8 years in here, If you look at the rate change over time, it's very, very small, even given 16 and given 11. Because if you look on the left here, look at the spacing, -1 to 1. Very small. So things are kept tight, we provide services, and we do it economically. Go. Next. A lot of that has to do with what the values of our homes are right now. Look at since 13, it's up and away. Now that's very, very much like any other town in this area, but still, the 6-year view continues to go up. Next. And that's why that view has come from this. Whately is still a great place to live. And it's a great place to live because this budget allows for the creation, improvement, and maintenance of services that are dear to each and every one of us within the police, fire, highway, and ambulance. We offer educational services that are high quality. We revere open land. We support agriculture. We have highly effective recycling efforts. Right, Fran? There you go. Alternative energy investments, one of the highest around. Paul, yes? There you go. We have a new town office building, and we support each and every year cultural and recreational environment. It's a good place to live. It's an economical place to live. There's a lot of value in this town. And I put this up just because I think you have to know the why. The why behind, if we follow that cultural path that we take here in Whately. Why did the Finance Committee recommend every article here tonight in regards to the town hall? The way we see it, there are 4 buckets. Very simple. The why behind the town hall, and we'll just look at this from a dollar perspective. $315,000 from town funds that are already there will not hit the tax rolls. $340,000 from CPA, already in the CPA bank, not going to hit the tax rolls. The people that are intimately involved with this restoration are chasing $150,000 in private funding and over $500,000 in mass grants. Will we get them all? Probably not. Will we get some of them? Very optimistic. But if we don't, we have a financial safety net right here in CPA borrowing, which again will not affect the tax rolls because we're already paying that. We're already paying that 3%. We've been paying that 3% for a long time. So it's already there. It's not going to go to 5% or 6%. 3% is it. It's there. It's in the bank. You can't find more value in a municipal project than this right here. In some ways, I think I'm preaching to the choir, but if not, if we don't take advantage of this position right now, shame on us. Whately remains a good place to live. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
And with that, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to act on the report of the Finance Committee on fiscal year 2018 operating budget and to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds money for the operation of the town's departments, boards, committees, agencies, and offices, for the payment of debt service and for all other necessary and proper expenses for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2017 as follows. And as follows, proposed fiscal year 2018 budget. The Finance Committee recommends that the amount shown in the column caption FY18 Finance Committee recommended budget be raised or appropriated or transferred from available funds for fiscal year 2018 operating purposes, debt service, and other town expenses. And as you can see, the budget follows with the totals at the end of each of the departments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion or questions?
Paul, sorry.
Yes.
Can someone just explain why the audit went up so high?
Brian?
Yep. The increase is attributed, well, really two things. There was a line item in the select board budget for $3,000 for an annual audit. So that was moved into the regular audit account. And we're also moving from a two-year audit to a single-year audit. The cost there, we had a quote from a firm to do a single-year municipal audit, and this is the price that they quoted us. It doesn't mean we'll go with them. We'll try to find something less expensive, but that's what we felt comfortable budgeting.
Other questions? Discussion? Then we'll put the omnibus budget to a vote. Those in favor? Opposed? The article passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $30,000 from available funds, FY16 free cash, to pay for the purchase and installation of a new communication system, including but not limited to new intercoms, clocks, and telephones at the Whately Elementary School.
Second.
Is there any discussion on Article 10? Yes, ma'am.
Do we need new clocks because they're not working?
They're all,
Would
my
anyone from the-
understanding is that they're all part of the same system. So the
It's all one
intercom clocks
package. It's all one package.
and telephone system.
It's a package to improve the emergency response, should the school confront some of the challenges that we see across the country. And all of the items seen listed have to work as one system to adequately provide for the safety of the staff and students.
But there is no doubt that this clock is not working. Yes.
I know this may seem petty, but are the clocks analog or digital? Because we basically analog, because I believe that our students know how to tell time according to the hands of the clock, because many places in the world demand them.
Thank you. Please.
We heard loudly, even from our school committee, I'm sorry. We heard very loudly from our own school committee that they were to be analog, not digital, and that is what we will bid out in the project.
Excellent, thank you. Other questions or discussion? Article 10 is up for vote. Those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $7,500 from available funds, fiscal year 16 free cash, to pay for the purchase and installation of new information technology hardware, software, and services to upgrade and increase the security of the town's network, computers, and email systems so as to enable the saving and recovery of critical data and an increase in workplace efficiency.
Second.
Is there any discussion on Article 11? Those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $9,750 from available funds, fiscal year 16 free cash, to pay for the purchase and installation of a mixed paper compactor at the transfer station.
Second.
Discussion on Article 12? Those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $61,000 from available funds, FY16 free cash, to pay for the purchase of protective equipment for the fire department.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from the Water Department Enterprise Fund retained earnings, free cash, the sum of $5,000 for the replacement of the Water Department truck.
Second.
Question or discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to establish pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, a separate stabilization fund to be known as the Vehicle Stabilization Fund, the purpose of which is to reserve such sums of money versus annual or special town meeting shall vote to appropriate into it for the future purchase of town vehicles, and further vote to transfer the sum of $10,000 from available funds, fiscal year 16 free cash, into that Vehicle Stabilization Fund authorized by a vote under this article.
Second.
Discussion or questions? I'm sure that all of you have noticed a striking resemblance between that article and the one that follows it, except for a few words. Perhaps it would be beneficial if you guys would just give a quick explanation.
I'll take that. Okay. The explanation is this. We had started, as I said earlier, we had joint select board finance committee meetings. And this subject came up at the final meeting that we had. And make a long story short, the finance committee voted to have this money set aside specifically for the police cruiser. A subsequent select board meeting, they had a discussion, and they felt that they would rather see the monies be in a general vehicle fund. That way it could be used for either police or, to be quite frank, the only other vehicle would be Keith's truck, or any other vehicle that the voters deem to vote in. So, with that, this came following our meeting. This had already been done, so it couldn't be taken off our motion, Article 16. So, we're going to remove it from the articles here, and we will not have to vote on it. And we are in agreement that we will go along with the general fund.
Thank you, Paul.
Good.
I don't understand what was just removed.
I don't understand what was just removed.
Nothing has actually been removed. Paul got a little of,
I
put
got
the
ahead of
horse just slightly ahead of the cart.
What's going to happen is if town meeting votes to approve Article 15, the vehicle stabilization account, it would make Article 16 moot, because it wouldn't be necessary because you'd already have that vehicle stabilization account. If town meeting votes against Article 15, then Article 16 is still an option, because then you would have a stabilization account strictly for a police vehicle. So if 15 passes, you don't need 15, but town meeting would need to vote to remove it from what we're doing tonight.
And it was a timing issue. The warrant had already been published by the time agreement was had. Any other questions or discussion on Article 15?
Can you explain what this police cruiser is that's down here? What is that terminology?
That terminology does not exist in Article 15, which is the one we're discussing, Bill.
Wait till 16.
Your question is basically out of order at this point. Any other issues or questions on Article 15? Those in favor? Opposed? I judge that to have been 2/3. Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion that we lay on the table Article 16.
You remove it.
Remove Article 16.
Second? Motion is made and seconded to lay on the table Article 16. It's not a debatable item. Those in favor? Those opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $5,000 from available funds, fiscal 16 free cash, to be added to the Capital Stabilization Fund as established in accordance with the provisions of General Laws 40, Section 5B.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Passed. Yes, you may.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town hear and act pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, on the report of the Community Preservation Committee for the fiscal year 2018 Community Preservation Budget. Vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund a sum of money in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other necessary and proper expenses in the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2017, including debt service for any approved community preservation project, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. And these are the appropriations. From fiscal year 18, estimated revenues for committee administrative expenses, $7,500. And then our reserves. From FY 18, estimated revenues for historic resources reserve, $15,000. From FY 18, estimated revenues for open space reserve, $15,000. From FY 18, estimated revenues for affordable housing reserves, $15,000. And from FY 18, estimated revenues for budget reserve, $14,500.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Discussion or questions? All those in favor? Those opposed? For the purposes of Article 19, I will relinquish the rostrum to the town clerk, acting moderator.
I'm going to also relinquish my role as town clerk to Mary Ellen Cranston, the assistant town clerk, so she'll take notes on this article. Is there a motion?
Yes, there is. I move the town vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund open space reserves the sum of $5,000 as the town's match for a permanent agricultural preservation restriction on 12 acres of land on Long Plain Road, Assessor's Parcel ID 21-0-5, currently owned by Richard E. Smith, Robert F. Smith, and William J. Smith, upon such terms and conditions as the Select Board, in consultation with the Ag Commission, shall deem appropriate.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And I will relinquish the role back to our moderator.
Good work.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund Housing Reserves a sum of $15,000 to the Whately Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Said transfer to be subject to and contingent upon the execution of a grant agreement between the town of Whately and the Whately Affordable Housing Trust for the receipt and expenditure of such sum.
I'll hear a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Mr. Moderator,
Motion passed.
I move that, I move that we do Article 24 is the next article to be moved forward. Second.
Second.
I believe the motion you're actually making is to defer Articles 21, 22, and 23 until after Article 24 is considered.
Yes.
All right. Those in favor?
Wait a second.
Opposed? Okay. So we'll proceed to work on Article 24, but I believe Brian would like to offer a brief overview.
Yeah, if I could take a minute of your time. There was a handout called Town Hall Rehabilitation Project Funding. That's the top. And I just wanted to orient everybody to what's about to be voted on in the next 4 articles. So we're taking Article 24 first. And there's a chart here on the top chart, and it adds up to $1.37 million. Article 24, which we're going to vote on next, is for the $315,000 in town funds. Then the next vote will be for Article 21, which will be the $340,000 in CPA funds. Article 23 is something a little bit different, and we could talk about that when we come there in terms of a preservation restriction as a requirement for one of the grants. And then I forgot Article 22, went out of order. Article 22, and that's the safety net that Paul was talking about, or the funding backstop, that's the $400,000 in CPA borrowing. So this will sort of give you a guide as we go through the articles as to how the funding stacks up. And just to finish the explanation of the chart, the 315 in town funds, town capital funds, the 340,000 the CPA available funds, 150,000 in private donations, and then the remaining ones are 3 grant applications that we have submitted already.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $315,000 from available funds, account number 259-001-3560-sale of land received available for appropriation to pay for the rehabilitation of the town hall, such work to be done under the direction of the select board and to comply with the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Okay, I'd like to just add to one comment to what Brian explained on the funding. We're voting on several articles here. This all fits into a puzzle of some funding, town funds supporting the grants. The 2 of the 3 grants, we need match money from the town. And if the town doesn't approve the Articles 21 and 24, our chances of getting the grant money are going to be very slim. We're applying for over $500,000 of grant money, and we need to match that. And that's why all this fits together as one package, one proposal that we're hoping that we're successful on funding the town hall.
Paul?
Just as a final note, this 315 was monies that came from the sale of the cell tower land. This is windfall money. This did not come from taxation. It didn't come from our wallets and pocketbooks. This is like lottery money. And this money has to be spent on a capital project, which we have in front of us right now. Thank you.
Other discussion or questions? Okay, this first article regarding funding is a majority vote. Those in favor? And those opposed? The motion is passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund unreserved fund balance $227,000. From the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 17 budget reserves, $30,000. And from the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 18 estimated revenues, $83,000. For a total of $340,000 for the rehabilitation of the town hall. Such work to be done under the direction of the Select Board and to comply with the Secretary of Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties.
Second.
Questions and discussion? This also is a majority vote. Those in favor? Opposed? Measure passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to borrow up to $400,000 for the rehabilitation of the town hall and to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board in consultation with the Community Preservation Committee, to issue any bonds or notes that may be necessary for that purpose, as authorized under the Community Preservation Program pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority for a period not to exceed 20 years, with all expenditure of such appropriation to comply with the Secretary of Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties.
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Joe?
I just want to make sure that everybody understands, and I think I do as well, that this is CPA raised money and is not the town actually taking a loan out on this.
No, this would be totally based on the surcharge, the 3% surcharge that the CPA has.
Everyone's clear on that? Comfortable? Yes.
Quick question. Part of it, I think, was just answered. What happens to the project if this article fails?
Not to be overly dramatic, but if the article fails, there'll be a special town meeting to authorize a wrecking ball to the former town hall. This is the last gasp for this building. All the ducks are in a row. The financing is in order. If it doesn't happen, there aren't a lot of avenues to make anything happen with that building, and it will ultimately fall down.
And of course, the town, someone will have to pay for that as well.
Let me just add to that. This is borrowing up to, it says up to $400,000. And why do we have it here? Because we're not sure about the grants. These are competitive grants. We have 3 grants we're applying for, as well as other communities in the state. We have no idea which of these 3 we're gonna get, if any, or the amount of any grant. And if we don't get the full amount of the grants, we're gonna need up to $400,000 of borrowing money to finance the town hall project. And if it's kind of a fail-safe measure, if we don't get the grants, we're just gonna sit on our hands and what, go home? No. We've studied the town hall. I don't know how many, most of you have been here at meetings before. For 6 years, we've gone through this project. And it's time to do something. We got 2 buildings in town that are no longer used for town offices. Well, one kind of is, the Historic Society is in the other building. The Historic Society is not going to stay in the center school forever. And it makes sense to move them into the town hall. And to do that, we need to remodel, rehabilitate, whatever you want to call it, restore the town hall. And this is the expense we came up with. So this $400,000 is kind of a fail-safe measure that the CPA committee has agreed to help to finance if the total package, which bears heavily on grant money, is not approved. And we won't know the grant money. We don't know that today. We applied for all of these already. The applications are in. We won't know till June or July which of these we get, which of these grants we've been approved for, and the dollar amount. At that time, shortly after that, we will advertise for bids for construction. We're ready to do that. We have near final plans. We're ready to go with this project. It's time to do it. And this is just a fail-safe measure. Again, I'll repeat, it's up to $400,000. We have no idea how much we're going to need today. And it says borrowing up to 20 years. If we don't borrow the $400,000, we may pay it off sooner than 20 years.
It's also the beauty of CPA. It's what the CPA was designed to do. The CPA money, it's already bought and paid for. If we don't use the CPA for this kind of a project, there aren't a lot of other historical preservation projects in the town. It's what CPA was designed to do, and we're implementing it in the best way that I've seen across this state.
You know, the Finance Committee is very much in tune with tax rates. I said it before, I'll say it again. This $400,000 loan will not hit the tax rate. Why? You're already paying for it. It's already in your tax base. So instead of those monies being divided up and going into CPA bank accounts somewhere, that money will be going to pay for the loan that has to be taken out to preserve the town hall. And so the tax rate does not change.
In the interest of fairness, is there anyone who wishes to oppose this measure who would like to make a comment?
I'd like to make a comment. I don't know if it's going to be opposing it or not.
Voted for.
I'd like to make a comment. I don't know if I'm opposing it or not. My comment is, what if the bids come in over the numbers that we're projecting right now?
Well, the cost estimate has some flexibility in the total cost and in the work to be done. We've got an additive to the building is going to be bid as a one price to remodel the building, and there's going to be an add-on for the parking lot in front of the building. There will be parking, some work done around the building and in the back, but the part in the front is going to be an add-on. So we'll get two prices when we go to bids. If they are high, we have an option of not doing the parking lot. At this time, that's one of the options. If bids are high, I guess we could always re-advertise and get another, seek further bids.
And I just want to say, I'm not opposed to this funding. I echo what Jonathan's saying. I think this is what CPA was for, but we've seen the cost of this project escalate and escalate each time we go. So I just want, I hate to play devil's advocate, but I just want to know what is our plan, and you have one answer that the parking lot goes away. I was just curious what happens with this thing if the bids come in over what we have estimated right now.
Judy?
Well,
Fred, let's let someone else have a moment.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say the backstop works in a couple of ways. If we do get the grant money and we have borrowed more than we hope to need, then we have a cushion for some overruns. It's also that bids can come in lower, and the experience with these architects has been that in fact they do often come in lower. And I can't speak for the CPA. The CPC has given a lot of money to historic preservation. But the debt service we're talking about here leaves, it's only against our local CPA revenues. And there's still a big cushion in those local revenues to fund not only the buckets, but other projects. So I think there is financing capability.
Anyone else that we haven't heard from? Yes. Over here. You promised to run.
So just as a point of clarification, if all of the grant money does come through, would we potentially be looking at borrowing nothing? So in other words, we're saying up to 400, but it could actually end up being nothing, is that right?
Yes, yes, that's very likely, or that could happen, yes.
Other comments or questions? This is going to require a 2/3 majority vote. I would ask the tellers to be cognizant of that. All those in favor, please indicate by holding up your cards and keep them up so we can get a count. And those opposed? I can do that math. The measure passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of the townhouse, town hall, emeritus, land, located at 194 Chestnut Plain Road, Whately, and having an assessor's parcel ID of 39-0-26 from the Select Board for the purpose of a town hall to the Select Board for the purpose of a town hall and community center and for the purpose of conveying a perpetual historic preservation restriction encumbering said townhouse, town hall, land, and the building thereon to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by and through the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and to authorize the Select Board to convey such restriction on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Select Board deems appropriate, and to take all action and execute all documents necessary in connection therewith. And I apologize for the run-on sentence.
Second.
Discussion, questions? This also requires a 2/3 vote, but I will not make the tellers count unless I don't see a lot of flags waving. Those in favor? And those opposed? In the judgment of the chair, it passes by 2/3.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $10,000 from available funds, fiscal 16 free cash, to pay for the benefits payout of a retiring town employee in accordance with the personnel policies of the town.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Those in favor? Those opposed? Measure passes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $100 from available funds for fiscal year 16 free cash for transfer to the Smith Charities as a contribution to be used for an historic building study of the Smith Charities building located at 51 Main Street, Northampton, Massachusetts.
Second.
Discussion? In favor? Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Assessors to transfer the sum of $200,000 from available free cash, fiscal year 16 free cash, to reduce the tax levy for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2017.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Measure passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to negotiate and enter into an agreement for the payment in lieu of personal property taxes, pilot agreement, with Nexamp Incorporated or its subsidiary in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 38H and GLC 164, Section 1, and any other enabling authority for the proposed solar electric generating facility to be located on a lot with assessor's parcel ID of 20-0-22, 134 Christian Lane, currently owned by Jeffrey and Shelley Cocott.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to negotiate and enter into an agreement for the payment in lieu of personal property taxes, pilot agreement with Nexamp Inc. or its subsidiary in accordance with General Law, Chapter 59, Section 38H, and General Law, Chapter 164, Section 1, and any other enabling authority for the proposed solar electric generating facility to be located on a lot with assessor's parcel ID 21-0-15 off of Christian Lane, currently owned by Wayne and Scott Hitkowski.
Second.
Discussion? Yes.
Do we read this to mean that the Nexamp Inc. will get a tax holiday?
No, it means that Nexamp Inc. will provide the town a revenue stream in lieu of taxation. So it'll be, it's another word for sort of an agreed upon taxation number from Nexamp to the town. So it's the reverse of what you were describing.
Is that signed off on before, I mean, is that agreed to before it's signed off on? The actual revenue flow?
Well, they will agree, they will sign an agreement with the Select Board on the amount of revenue to be paid, and that's over a 20-year period, versus other arrangements which could be up to 5 or 10 years, so.
So we say this is a similar kind of arrangement with the cell tower?
Well, not necessarily cell tower, but with the other two solar farms we have in town.
All right, thanks.
Other questions? Those in favor? And those opposed? Passed.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to petition the General Court for special legislation to allow John LaSalle, the town of Whately call firefighter, notwithstanding the provisions of any general or special law to the contrary, to serve in such position until the age of 70 or until the date of his retirement or non-appointment, whichever occurs first, provided that no deductions from the regular compensation of said John LaSalle shall be made under General Law, Chapter 32, subsequent to his reaching the age of 65, in connection with his service to the town for retirement or pension purposes, and further provided that the General Court may make clerical and editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the Select Board approves amendments to the bill prior to enactment by the General Court, and to authorize Select Board to approve such amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of the petition.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Those in favor? And those opposed? The article is passed. The following two articles were submitted by citizen petition.
Mr. Moderator, I can speak to both articles since I was the initial petitioner. And my motivation for the first article is the state of our electoral democracy in this country, and I urge the town to both to vote locally and think globally, at least in terms of national politics, but also in terms of state politics. And I think it's incumbent upon us all as citizens to be actively engaged in the promotion of more democratic accountability on behalf of our elected officials. So I'm offering this petition in hopes that if the town votes for it, it will send a message to our legislators, both in Boston and in Washington, that we do care about how our democracy is conducted. And some of the measures here have been culled from different initiatives that are occurring elsewhere in the state at town meetings. And I thought it would be a good thing to do for the town of Whately to also let our legislators know that we're paying attention, and we feel like there's some things that could be done to make our democracy even healthier than it is.
And the nature of your motion, Paul, would be,
And the what?
you have yet to make a motion.
Okay, so I move to see if the town will vote to pass the following resolution.
As presented in the write-up.
Second.
Okay. I could read the whole thing.
Oh, I don't think so.
I'd rather not. I've been teaching all day, so I don't have much of a voice left, but you can see in bold at least, well, sort of in bold, some of the main features.
I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to give it a good look over. Is there any discussion? Questions? All those in favor? And those opposed?
Mr. Moderator?
The ayes have it.
So I would like to see if the town will vote to pass the following resolution. We can second it, and I can introduce it, or however you want to
Second.
go. So this resolution is self-explanatory, but it basically has to do with citizens voicing support for measures to reduce the potential harm of climate change, which is upon us, as most of us know. And again, this is a small town speaking out to a larger audience about a global issue that affects all of us everywhere. And I don't know about you, but this is a very important issue. And it's not being acted upon responsibly, in my opinion, by people in Washington and elsewhere. And it's about time they heard that we care about our climate, and we care about our future generations and living in a stable environment. So I propose this petition article for your consideration. Thank you.
Any discussion or questions regarding Article 32? All those in favor? And those opposed? Article 32 passes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn if anyone cares.
Mr. Moderator, I move to adjourn without whatever it is.
Second.
So moved.
Okay, folks.
We stand in adjournment.
Good year. Nice job. We'll see
Thank you all very much.